you struggle with your tension when you're crocheting, this video is going to help you learn a little bit more about your personal tension and also how to adapt if and when needed. First of all, I want to go through these 3 swatches. All of these 3 swatches have been made with a 4mm crochet hook, and they all have the same amount of stitches and also the same amount of rows. Each of them is slightly different in height. All of them, however, are the same size in width. So we can see the 3 different swatches just here, all with the same stitches, the same number of rows, using the same yarn and also the same crochet hook. The difference in these swatches is the difference in tension used when creating the stitches. We can classify these 3 different types of crocheters as yankers, riders, and lifters. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this means. So here I have a swatch using the same hook and the same yarn as before, and I'm going to introduce you to the golden loop. So the golden loop is when you're doing a stitch. For example, if we're doing a treble crochet, which is UK terms, this is a US double crochet, you're going to pull the yarn through your stitch, and then this loop right here is your golden loop. You can see that if we lift it up, it makes it bigger. If we pull it down, it makes it smaller. So let's take a look first at what a rider would be. So this is the middle of the road in terms of the 3 styles of crochet tension. If you are a rider, which is what I am and which is what I feel people should aim to be, you are riding your hook, the shaft of your hook, along the top of the stitch. You're yarning over and pulling through, and then yarning over and pulling through. I'll show you that again. You'll yarn over, insert, and then when you pull through, this is the golden loop. We're keeping that on top of the stitch without pulling it up or pulling it down, and then we're yarning over and pulling through and pulling through. Now let's take a look at what a yanker would be. So this is the smaller of the swatches, which means that the height of the stitch is smaller than that of the rider, the middle of the road. So the way that this happens is when you're doing a stitch, you're pulling through and we have our golden loop here. There tends to be a lot of tension on the yarn. So when there is a lot of tension on the yarn, it pulls down that loop very, very close or in front of the stitch below. You would then yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through. Let's do that again. So the tension on the yarn is very tight, which makes this golden loop tight on the hook. And then you yarn over, pull through, and then pull through. And it makes those stitches smaller than that of the others. Let's take a look at the other way. So the taller of the stitches, they are called lifters. So we'll start our stitch, and at this point, instead of pulling tight or riding on the stitch, the loop is pulled up. So it's lifted up, which makes that golden loop a lot larger. We would then finish off the stitch, and there we can see the difference from the yanker to the lifter. Let's go ahead and do that again. So at this point, the loop is lifted, and then we pull through and pull through. So on this sample, we have done all 3 types of crocheters. We've done the rider, the yankers, and the lifters, which makes these stitches look uneven. Now you could find that your tension will vary throughout your work, and this would be the reason why. So when you start a project, be mindful of what type of crocheter you are, or certainly how you started your stitches within your project, and be sure to continue that throughout the project itself to keep your tension consistent. Now let's take a look at these swatches again. Now, as I said, all of these swatches are the same in width, but are different in height. This information is really handy to know, especially if you're trying to work on a pattern and you're trying to hit another crocheter's gauge. It could be that you need to adapt the tension of how you're working. You might be a lifter, for example, but the designer is a yanker. So you will have to adapt your tension in order to hit that gauge or alter the pattern as needed. So this all applies to the stitch height. But what happens if you're finding that your tension is too wide or too small? So you're measuring the gauge and you have too few or too many stitches. Now this swatch here is again the same yarn, and it's also the same amount of stitches and the same amount of rows. In this swatch, this is the riding tension. However, you can see here that it is the same height, but because I have adapted my hook size, I've gone up to a 4.5mm crochet hook, it is wider. So to recap, if you find that you have too many or too few stitches in terms of gauge, you can adapt your hook size. But if you find that you have too many or too few rows in your work, then you can adapt your tension. So this is really good information to keep in the back of your mind when you are working on your projects. But there are many other things that can affect your crochet tension as well. So if you want to learn more about those things, then you might want to check out this video to get all of the information.